Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our webinar series. This is Amazon Workspaces for Workday. Um, as you can see, and this is going to be a very short tutorial. Basically, what I want to do is introduce you to the different skills or processes that you will have when using Workspaces. As you can see, we have get access to Workspaces, sign on to Workspaces, running queries using different tools such as Brio, Access, Excel, using legacy data, Redshift, and even Oracle data. We also are going to show you how to save results to Dropbox, run queries from Dropbox, and this is pretty much going to take replacement of terminal server. So this is going to be your new way of running your reports and accessing your data, and won't be using terminal server anymore. Last thing that I will show, and maybe will be a live demo, which will be just how to import your existing financial data warehouse queries from My Reports and having them be accessible in Workspaces. What you can expect is the first contact would be an email. The email will be providing you with all the required information you need, a link to download the latest version of the software. You can use this link. It'll show you what operating system that you need to choose from. As you can see from the PowerPoint, it has, for those who have Mac, iPad, Windows, tablet, Chrome, Fire, tablet, all the different devices that you need. Just use the link from the email to download the appropriate software. When using the link to download, you'll be able to go through the different pop-ups, and it's a simple download process, so it's just clicking next through every prompt until you get to the final phase, and then just clicking the close button to install the software. It'll then be shown on your desktop. You'll have an icon showing Workspaces on your desktop, which you'll use to launch the actual version of the software. If you, for some instance, download the wrong version of the software, you'll be prompted to have a new version installed. It's a simple process as well. It's just a prompt of install the update. It'll show you the different fixes, whatever features that have been added or not. And by clicking install update, you go through the same prompt and go all the way through, and then you'll have your version of Workspaces updated. Once you launch the actual software, which will be on your desktop, you will see that through your onboarding email, you should be receiving an actual registration code, which you will use to register your Workspaces. After doing that, you will need to actually use your login information, which will also be provided to you through your onboarding email, your username and password. It should be your ASU right now. We're kind of working through the process, so everyone should kind of look forward to that email, onboarding email, of all the information you need. Where it says the MFA code should be like a regular Duo access, where it's just like push SMS. But sometimes, for some reason, it'll also say second password. If it says that, it's still the same push or phone or whatever way you receive your Duo access. Once you go through the login process, you have a window pop up, shows you just Workspaces, kind of similar to Terminal Server. It's just right now, it's just the design layout is pretty bland, but it will change in time as we update this design. Workspaces is very familiar to anyone who's used Windows 10. It has a similar format. You could use the Windows Start menu to shut down, log off, but we would say best practices would be to shut down, as it just kind of keeps it running, and there's a cost saving for shutting down every time you use Workspaces. Now, basically, this is just a summary of what we went through. You get your link, you download your software, and you go to your register your software with the link onboarding email that you were provided, then your login information using your dual access with push, SMS, or text. And basically, you would go through this process and be able to enter your Workspaces. Now, in this process right now, we're going to talk about creating data sources. As of right now, this is pretty much Not like my reports where you have your shared data sources and anyone could use it, just kind of opening a report and it already has your access to your different OCEs as we know it. We are going to have to create different OCEs for every database per tool. We'll kind of go through this process one by one. The tools we're going to talk today about are Access, Excel, and Hyperion Desktop Client, otherwise known as Brio for most users. Every data source kind of requires you to have your own unique login identifier and also create a DSN driver. I will kind of go through this process step by step for everyone to kind of get a good overview of how this is done. First, we will start off with using Microsoft Access. And to get to Microsoft Access, kind of like Terminal Server, first thing you want to do is actually go to the taskbar, look for the Windows icon menu, Start menu, look for A for Access. All the different softwares are pretty much alphabetized, so you just go under A and then you get your Microsoft Access. And then first thing you want to do is open Microsoft Access and then look for blank desktop database. This is the option that you would use to create your first database source. Once you've clicked on your blank access database, the first thing you want to do is look at your menus and look for external data. This would be the option to create your ODBC database. As you can see, it's right under external data. You want to click onto that to start your process of creating an ODBC connection. All the different connections we will be creating today will all be ODBC for your different tools. So you'll have me say it over and over again that it's an ODBC connection. So whenever you see that in any of your tools, that's pretty much the unique identifier that you'll be using to identify how to create your data sources. Once you click on that menu, it will ask you a specific question whether you want to import your source of data, which most users would not want to do because it's kind of just importing all your data to whatever software you're using. What you want to do is link to the data source by creating a link table, selecting that and just clicking OK. From there, it'll say to select your data source. Since we don't have one, we'll have to create one. It's under File Data Source tab. There's two tabs. One is for machine data source. We want to use the file data source, and we want to just highlight where it says new and click onto new, and then it will start off where it says create a data source. This is where you're going to have to choose your actual driver. In this process, we're creating something for Amazon Redshift. If we were creating something for Oracle, we'd have to use a different driver. So we're choosing Amazon Redshift as the driver that we're trying to create our connection. The next pop-up would be for just naming your data source, right? So you pretty much need a name that you identify with this connection. I decided to call it Amazon Redshift Connection Info. You could call it whatever you desire. And browse is to just save that connection in a specific folder or location of your choosing. So you just kind of name it, hit next, and then hit finish. Once you click on finish, it'll pop up a different window where you need to put in your server information, your port information, and as you can see, the information down here is what you're going to need to actually identify the server with your login information. You might have a different password. We're still working on the kinks on that, but for now, it's what you see here, which is the ASU edwdev.asu.edu. You can go through this whole process of just filling out the information, putting your login information from what is provided to you, and then once you click OK, it'll bring you to select your newly created data source, and you'll just click the data source that you've named. Mine was called Amazon Redshift Connection Info, DSN, so that's the data source that I would choose. Once you click on OK to take you to the next screen is where you would select the tables that are all associated with this data source. You would get a list of tables starting with ASUDW and for the schema and going down. To choose more than one table, you would just kind of click on Control and select the tables that are useful for you, and then kind of just click OK and go through the process of having your data dump of tables. So here I've just kind of tried to identify the different tables that you would see. The legacy financial tables will begin with FW, Workday financials would be WD, and your crosswalk tables would be XWalk or XWalk. All the tables that you've selected would show under access under all access objects. This is how you would select your tables and your fields to create your newly created report using the data source connection that you've created. Now, if we wanted to do an Oracle connection, like I said before, you would always have to create a different driver. Since it's not Amazon, you want to make sure you identify the driver that you're trying to create for. And it would go through the same process. You would go to create your ODBC connection, and then it would bring you to select your data source, which you would select new because you're trying to create this new connection. Then you would go through the different pop-up of selecting the Oracle Client 12 Home 1. And then from there, you would click Next, name the different connections that you're trying to create. For this one, I just decided to call it ASU PM Prod. We are working on E1 Financial, but right now it's not present. But we're just going to go through the process using ASU PM Prod. Clicking Next and then clicking Finish like we did in the previous slide. And then just this one, just logging in with your credentials, your DW account information that you've been provided, your username, login, and then clicking OK once that connection is made. Once that connection is made, again, you would have to select the data source that you've created, basically showing in the window, and then looking for your linked tables to kind of go through to create your data dump into Access to create your report. For every database, you would have to kind of go through the same steps, whether it's for PM Prod or test. You'd have to create your data source connections, and you could use these slides to kind of go through to see where you if you made a mistake or if you need to do something specific to create that connection. The next tool we'll talk about is Microsoft Excel, and it's slightly different than Access, but pretty much you go through the same process. You go through the Windows tab, hit the icon, look for Excel 2016. Then from there, it will open up the tool. Then you go to data, then from other sources. There's many different ways of doing the data sources in this specific tool, but I'll show you the easiest way for me. If you have any other ways of doing it, if you know how to do it, then go ahead and try to do it that way. The way that I know how to do it is going through other sources and then scrolling down to from Microsoft Query. It says the ODBC. This is the terminology that you're looking for because you're creating an ODBC connection. From there, you would have this pop-up on the left that shows you, to create your new data source. Make sure you're selecting new data source and not the data sources that are listed below, because it doesn't show that you have any of those connections yet. These are ones that I've created, and then you would just click OK. The next pop-up would just be the same process that you've done in Access, which is name your data source connection, right? So we're doing it for Redshift, Amazon Redshift 64. So I would just call it Amazon Redshift ODBC DSN, so I know what connection I'm creating. Where it says second line would be just a drop down with different connections. This is the driver, so I'm selecting Amazon Redshift. Then the third line is to connect, so I need to put the connection information. So I would click on connect, and then it would pop up my next window with all my server information that I need to provide. Right now, this is the connection information that you need with your ASU right and Redshift password, which would be provided to you with your onboarding email. Once you've inputted that information, you just click OK. It says test, but I've seen tests sometimes to test the connection, but in this one process I did, it said OK, so you would just click OK. Now, once you've click OK, it would bring you back to selecting your data source. Here you could select different tables, a default table. For instance, Redshift doesn't have a lot of tables right now, so selecting a default table is not really necessary, but something like PM Prod or PeopleSoft will have many tables, so you might want to, default to a specific table if you're looking for something specific. You would also see your list of tables right on the drop down to select which table you're looking for. And then from there, if you choose to or choose not to select the default table, you would just be prompted to select your data source that you've just created, which is the Amazon Redshift, ODBC, and then go through the query wizard of creating your report based on the tables that you need. Every table will have a drop down to select the fields that you need. You kind of just click onto it, make sure you have a unique identifier to join those tables, and then click next, and will be a data dump just like you did in Access. Like I said, there are multiple ways of creating your data connection. Some users might have queries that they would like to bring over, and they'll have the SQL. So another way of doing this is going through Excel in the same data connection tab, selecting new query from other sources and from ODBC. Then using the connection string for Amazon Redshift, which is provided to you right here, and then just pasting in your SQL statement with all your fields and values that you've created to just get the correct or accurate query that you're looking for. This is another simple way if you have a report that you want to use that you have the SQL statement for. Now the tool that we'll discuss is Hyperion Desktop Client. Like I said, some people call it Brio. Same way that we've accessed Access and Excel, we would just go into the Start menu, and under O would be Oracle EPM System. Click onto Studio, and then the icon would pop up, and then you would have your Hyperion Desktop Studio will appear. The first thing you would be prompted with is either if you would like a recent database connection. If you haven't created one, it won't have a connection like you see ASU PM Prod. This is something that I created initially before testing. So you would choose a new database connection file and then click OK. The next pop-up would just be what connection software do you want to use. Like I said, the terminology would be ODBC connection. What type of database do you want to connect to? Same thing, ODBC connection. And then choosing the first two prompts, which is Show Meta Connection Wizard and Show Advanced Options. And then click Next. In this pop-up, you would just use your login information. And although it has a DW account for Denise, we would not be putting that. You'd put your own personal user login, and where it says host is where you would select the connection that you're looking for, whether it's ASU PM Prod or if it's Amazon Redshift. The next slide, you have 3 prompts, and you kind of just click next on those. They're all defaulted into what you need to, so you could just click on next, except for the last database connection wizard where it says allow SQL 92 advanced set operations. You want to click onto that so you have all the different computed items that you could create and have it compatible with all your queries. You want to also exclude Hyperion repository tables because you really don't need those. And then click Next. These are also defaulted. These pop-ups, you just kind of want to click on to save your OCE without username. The reason for this is if you're trying to share the report and the user wants to input their own username, that's probably the best way to do it. Although we found some errors in that as well, so you could click onto it or not. It really doesn't hurt you if you click onto it, but it's something that I think it's best practice to do. The next pop-up, you want to disable asynchronous processing and use ODBC outer join syntax for filters, just because if you're doing outer joins, you want to make sure you have it as compatible as you've had it with My Reports. And then your last step is just to click Finish and save your OCE to your actual repository. says, do you want to save? You say yes, and you select your location for saving your OCE. Now, another way to start a new document if you're new to My Reports is to just, now that you have an OCE, is to just hit File, New. Once you hit New, you'll be able to, like before, you've just created your OCE, so now you can hit Recent Database Connection, click onto your OCE, and now you have the connection that you've had. If it's not located in the Recent Database Connection files and you know you have one, just hit the Browse button and look for your saved location, and you'll be able to select the OCE that you're looking for. Once you select your OCE, you will still need to put in your username and password. It's kind of like a security step just to make sure that you are who you say you are. So just put in your login information and you'd be able to access your report. Just like My Reports, the design layout is pretty much everything the same. There's not really anything different that you would know. Basically, you could see here you have your process button, your menus, your toolbars. Everyone who's used My Reports before will know the element section is where all the tables are. Your status bar of how many rows that your query has come back with, your filter line. These are all the same things that you've used to in My Reports, and as you can see with the desktop client, nothing has really changed. Now, there's one step that I would like to show you is how to save your reports and run your reports from Dropbox. And in order to do that, we need to install Dropbox on your Workspaces. So just like we've did with all the other software, we're going to go to the Start menu, look for the Dropbox icon. You could search for it if you don't want to look for it. Once you get the icon, just kind of click onto it. It says it launches the icon, but unfortunately, you'll have to go to the Task menu, and you would see this little arrow pointer, and then have to click onto the Dropbox icon. This will now launch the actual Dropbox, which will tell you that you'll have to click onto those words to sign in. You have to actually click where it says click here, or it won't actually do anything. Unfortunately, it doesn't highlight it in a hyperlink or anything, so you just have to click where it says click here to sign in and get started. Once that's done, it'll populate again. It says put in your information. You basically sign in with your email and your password, and just follow the process. You have to sign in doing your ASU right again with your password. You'll get your Duo information to push. Once you push, you will be authenticated and then be provided with a link code that will allow you to access your Dropbox. You need to copy this code and then paste it in and then hit submit, and then you will be able to access your Dropbox. Once that is done, Dropbox will have an icon, a desktop icon onto your Workspaces. One of the processes that we do want to show is how to use Dropbox as an easy way to save your reports and your files. So one of the ways to do that is to right-click onto your Dropbox icon and select Pin to Quick Access, and you'll be able to use that as an actual drive. There's more ways to do it. You could also use Dropbox in a different way, but this is pretty much the best and user-friendly way of doing it. You also get a miscellaneous email saying that you've connected from a different location. It'll say the email. You could either ignore it, but best practice is just to click yes. Do not click no, because you just logged on to Dropbox and it's just identifying that you did. It's not something that you need to worry about or hacked or anything. It's just basically an email telling you that you signed on to Dropbox. Now that we've signed on to Dropbox, once we have an open report and we would like to save onto our files or save our files to a specific drive, we want to basically do the same process that we do in My Reports, and that is to use the file option, click onto export, go to section, make sure you're on the section that you want to export. Once you have that section opened out, then you can hit File, Export Section. And then since we've created Dropbox and we have it associated with quick access, we can now use quick access, use our Dropbox, and we've created a UTO analytics folder, which will be a standard folder to use to save all your files. So you would just click onto your Dropbox folder, then UTO analytics, and then select Workday project. And in Workday project, you could create your own user folders to save your reports that will benefit you and your team as far as sharing your reports. Once you've done that, you could save your report, which is going to be your BQY file. So the report will always have that extension where it says .bqy, and your files will be either Excel, PDF, or whatever format you choose. From your Dropbox, you just double click onto your BQY file and it would open up your report, and you'll be able to use your report just as you've seen in my reports. It's just a double click or a right click and open as, and then your report will open up. Basically, the difference between my reports and using the desktop client is once someone has created the report with that OCE file, unfortunately, you are not able to use that OCE file. You'll have to have your own OCE to basically run the report. So you'd have to mirror all the OCEs that they have created, all the connections that's embedded in the reports. So that's why we kind of went through creating your different ODBC connections. So you would have those OCEs ready to use for your reports. So double clicking onto the report would open up the file, and then once you try to process the report, it would give you a warning that you couldn't connect to that actual report because you do not have that OCE. Then you click OK, and then it'll try to help you find that OCE. Wherever that location is, you would be able to do that. If you don't have that specific OCE connection, you would have to actually create it. So you could click Cancel and then go to Tools in the desktop client and then click Connection and Create. Using that step, it'll be an easier way to create that connection that I've showed you previously. And then you would just follow the slides previously that showed you how to go through ODBC connection and then get to creating your data source, selecting your driver. This one we clicked on E1 Financial, which, like I said before, we're working on creating the driver for that. It hasn't, it's not working right now. So as soon as that is fixed, we'll let you know through email. But you would just go through the slides 24 through 29 and creating your data source, whether it's PM Prod or SUP or E1 Financial, enter your logging information and get access to that actual database connection. Now, I would like to show a live demo of what you need to actually save your My Reports. But if you have any questions right now, that would be a good time to kind of just let me know so I could address before I go any further. Any questions? Okay. All right, so I'm going to log into My Reports. And hopefully my live demo works properly. I have my fingers crossed. So you would just open up your report. So basically, a lot of you would like to import your queries from your existing folders. The way you would do this is go into your folder in My Reports, or if you saved them before, this will be a simple step for you by clicking File, and the option is Save As. Not to repository like we've done in the past. We're actually saving it out of My Reports, so we do File, Save As. And then from here, select your Dropbox, and then your folder that we've appointed to use for this project, which is UTO Analytics, Workday Project, Demo. And you want to make sure that it says compressed, because some reports out there are very huge, and we want to make sure that it's the smallest file that is possible. You don't want to have a big file going and saving. So make sure it says compressed and then save. Once that's done, you could now go into your workspaces, and hopefully that doesn't take forever. Okay. Now that I'm in Workspaces, I would go to my Dropbox folder, my ETO Analytics, Workday project, demo folder that I created, and here's the report that I just saved. Double click onto it, and here it is. Here's the report that I just created. So that should be an easy way of importing your reports. You would still need to do your different data connections because you just went from My Reports, but that's a simple way of importing your files. We do have some processes that we need to work on, and obviously this is in testing phase, so there are some errors. If there's any errors that you receive while trying to do this, I will be the contact person for those questions. You could reach out to me, and I'll be able to help you with any questions you have. Like I said before, I'll be the contact for any errors that you receive. There'll be a recorded link provided to you in the email after this webinar. And I'm also available on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for open office hours in the FMS project room. And this is the end of our webinar for Workspaces. Please feel free to ask any questions online. We're here to assist and help and provide a better webinar if necessary. If I did anything that you didn't like, if I went too fast, don't be shy. Going once, twice, that's it. Again, thank you for attending this webinar. The link will be provided with the slides on the different steps. Look forward to you guys using Workspace and getting your feedback. We're doing our best to have hold on, I'm getting some updated information from Kristen. So in a week or two, you should be able to access Workspaces. If you would like to go through it with me, you could always schedule open office hours once you get that email.